The video is really going to focus on foundational strategies and elements that you need to be familiar with in order to win sit-and-go tournaments. In case you're not sure what a sit-and-go tournament is, it's basically like being at the final table in a Texas Hold'em poker tournament. And we start off on the final table in like a single table or even a multi-table, 2 or 3 table tournament. And the goal is to get down into that final 2 or 3 or 4 and to end up in the money. Of course, the ultimate goal is to win the tournament. We're going to see actual tournament scenarios here where we're playing in sit-and-go tournaments so we can see the exact action that's happening, and I'll be making comments as we go through and we look at what's occurring in the game and how we should be thinking and reacting to the situations that occur. I'm also going to talk about the X Factor method that I developed as a system that makes it simpler for players playing in sit-and-go tournaments to properly manage their chip stacks and react properly in the different kinds of situations you'll find yourself in. And then finally, we'll see some useful tools and websites that I've prepared for you that will also help you with your game and to boost your skills. So this is a first in a series of these how-to videos that I will be going into various aspects of Texas Hold'em and sit-and-go tournaments, regular tournaments, and ultimately as well as cash games. This video is brought to you by my Secrets of Winning Sit-and-Go Tournaments ebook. Incidentally, you may or may not be familiar with my product that I released originally in 2004 called Poker Sidekick. Poker Sidekick, if you're a beginner new to the game, actually will teach you the starting hands. It will teach you strategy, basic elements of how to play the game, and teach you the odds of the game and things that you really need to know to properly approach the Texas Hold'em game. What it does is it monitors your play online in real time, and it gives you this kind of feedback as a poker odds calculator and an expert system and consultant right there on the screen with you. So if you're at the beginner intermediate level and you haven't seen Poker Sidekick, I'd recommend that you have a look at that at royalflushclub.com. My Sit-and-Go Secrets ebook is used by thousands of people worldwide today to win and profit from sit-and-go tournaments. And parts of this video will be based on the ebook, but the ebook goes into lots of detail that we won't have time to cover here today. So if you're really interested in winning and profiting, I recommend you check that out. It's also at royalflushclub.com. There's a few other websites that I've prepared for you. BetterHold'em.com is a free articles and information website where you'll find all kinds of information and other products and things you can access to boost your game. And finally, PokerTester.com is a new site that I'll be launching in Q1 of 2007. There's an early version of it out there if you want to see it now. PokerTester.com provides a free Texas Hold'em poker test where you can go test your skills. Basically, you answer 25 questions that test 8 different areas of your poker skills, and it'll show you where your knowledge level is good, where your situational analysis in the game is good, and where you've got gaps that you need to work on and fill in order to get better. So if you haven't been there yet or been there lately, check out PokerTester.com. So what we're going to do is go through and analyze a number of different stages of winning sit-and-go tournaments here. It starts with the early stage, and this, is all about getting you started in the game right, getting a feel for the table and the action and the players, starting to understand what type of players you have at your table, and kind of getting your feet on the ground in that tournament. As you progress and a few players start dropping out, you'll end up with 5 or 6 players, and at this stage things get fairly intense, and it becomes sort of a survival of the fittest is the way I like to think of it. So there's certain things we need to do differently in the middle stage in order to survive to the next stage, which is making it into the money. That's where we actually profit by being in the last 3 or 4 remaining at the table, depending on how many tables there are, and you make it into the money. So, if you in a single table tournament, you want to be in the top 3 to be in the money. Of course, ultimately, where you really want to end up is in a heads-up match, so you come in first or second, and obviously, we all want to come in first place. So we'll go through this in several stages. We'll talk about the early game and how to get started right, surviving that middle game shakeout, how to make it into the money into that late stage we talked about, and then how to play heads up in order to win it all. Ultimately, what we want to do at a heads up match is end up being the champion, because the champion walks away with most of the money, and it feels really good to win a tournament. So that's what we'll strive to do. And we're gonna actually do that, and we're gonna watch me doing this online, playing in actual tournament scenarios here. So it's tournament time. Let's sit back, relax, and let's actually go on to the tables. We're going to begin by getting started right with some tournament table action. Welcome to the tournament table. Today we are at a PokerStars tournament table that is a sit-and-go single table tournament with 10 players. And this was a $10 buy-in. I thought it was a common enough level that we would just start there. Now, you know, what I'm going to do is narrate as we go through here. As you can see here, I'm the poker professor over here on the bottom right side, and ID is PokerProf007. What we're going to do is I'm going to narrate through the game as we examine various aspects of this early game period. Now, I'm not going to bore you with every aspect of the game that I ended up playing, but what I do want to do is show you this cut down version that I've edited down a little bit here, and we'll look at a number of key elements of the game as we progress. At this stage of the game, what I'm typically doing is just watching the other players, getting a sense for how they're playing. Are they playing really crazy? Are they playing rather solid poker, you know, somewhat extra tight? How are they actually playing and carrying on? And it's a good idea to get a sense for who's at your table and what you're up against, and do that fairly early on in the tournament. And you know, at this stage, I'm not in the hand. What I'm doing is I'm watching these other players, and I'm going to watch how many hands they play. I'm going to watch. See, this guy immediately folded. The bad bait guy just folds as soon as a big bet comes at him. So just stick that little piece of information away, and we'll keep watching. Now, you know, 8-2, I don't think I'm going to play that kind of a starting hand, but I will go ahead and check it. Since I'm in the blind, I'll stay in and see what happens, but that's certainly not a starting hand I'm going to start out with. So what we're going to do is tend to play much more tight up front, but when we do play a hand, we're going to play it aggressively. So we're going to go ahead and fold this 8-2. This is not a hand we want to be in on. I'd like to play group 1 hands early on in the tournament, but then occasionally play a surprise hand and mix things up. Blinds are low. We can afford to take some chances. There's very little risk, you know, unless we get kind of crazy and carried away and just, you know, going all in or over betting this early in the tournament. Good. Ace-Jack offsuit. Not a tremendous hand. It's probably a group 2 hand, but a group 2 starting hand is fine. I'm in the blind. You know, why not see the flop and see what happens in any event, right? I'm going to go ahead and just, at this point, you know, I'm actually going to go ahead and raise it, because why not? You got a good strong starting hand, and I might just chase everybody out right away, and that'll be fine. I think that's what happens, yeah. When you bet strong from the blind or generally anywhere, you're going to have a tendency to drive people out of the pot. And if you just call and you sit there and check and call and check and call, that's such weak play. You know, you often see that with beginners. It's not the way you want to play this game. If you do that, you're going to get beaten a lot, because when you're constantly checking and calling, you're signaling that you don't have a strong hand. And what I like to do is tend to, you know, if I check or call, there's a good chance that yeah, I might be wanting to see the flop, but there's also a good chance I might have a really strong hand and I'm underplaying it, and I'm setting you up for a trap. Now this is interesting. So 6, 7, 8, 9. I'm missing the 8. We hit the 8 on the river just for sticking around and going out through the draw. Nobody's betting anything. I'm just going to hang out and see what happens. Now, as it turns out, the 8 didn't fall, so I'm out of here. You know, as soon as I'm not going to try to bluff anybody. No way I'm going to stay in this hand. So I'm done. We're out of there. And I'm still pretty much where I started at 1,500 chips. Look at this now. You know, I'm getting some decent starting hands here. Ace-Jack offsuit again, late position, one off the dealer in the cutoff. So I've got 270 in the pot. It's going to be 120 to call, so I'm going to be getting, you know, reasonably decent pot odds. So I think I'm going to go ahead and stay in this hand here and see what happens. So as it turns out, I flopped an ace, and I've got a good kicker, which I like. I don't like playing just ace crap, ace trash very often, because it'll really get you in trouble, from a kicker perspective, and you get out kicked and you end up in trouble. Now I'm going to raise this up. I'm going to make it painful enough to stay in with me that I can just walk off with this pot or make some more money on it. And in this case, I chased them out, and that's good. They didn't have an opportunity to draw any crap on me and hit me, knock me out on the river or whatever. So I hate it when that happens. Queen King, not a bad starting hand. I'm just going to go ahead and go with the flow here, though. No telling what would happen with King Queen offsuit. That's a little bit marginal. I'm in middle position. It's a little marginal, but look, I flopped the king pair, and that's great. It's top pair. And what I don't want is somebody sitting there with an ace, because one of those guys probably has an ace, and we need to be thinking about what they have. I'm going to raise it up again. Once again, I don't want people drawing out on me. They're just sitting there waiting for an ace to flop, for example. So let's see what we think's going on here. So he folds. There's a potential flush on the board. He doesn't know if I've got it. I don't have it at this point, but I do have a shot at it with the Queen of Hearts. Goes all in. At this point, I've got him out kicked. Like I said earlier, be really careful with your kickers. That's why I like playing these Group 1 and Group 2 hands early in the tournament. Those kickers will get you in big trouble. I'm just going to fold this 8-6 offsuit. It's not something that I would typically play. When I get a hand like that, I might, in late position, like on the dealer button, I might play a hand like that occasionally just to mix things up. But be very, very occasional. I'd much rather have a suited connector, that sort of play. We've got one player out that I took out, and then now I've got a really good starting hand here, Ace King. So what do you suppose I'm going to do? I'm early on. I'm going to go ahead and try to drive everybody out, raise it up a little bit, and if anybody stays in with me, the chances are they have a pretty decent hand. So he's calling. He's saying I've got a decent enough hand to stay in with you. What we're going to see here is that we got a good raise. Now that's signaling a really strong hand when you got a re-raise like that, a big raise. In this case, I'm just going to go ahead and call. I've got him out chipped, by far, and got a flush draw. There could be a straight out there, so let's see what he does. I've got a shot at the ace high nut flush. I'm going to go ahead and call it. It's a really questionable call, and he did have the aces, the pocket aces, and fortunately for me, in this case, I drew out on him and got the nut flush. I still would have had 1,650 chips left if I hadn't made that flush draw. So you got to take a few chances, and if you've got the chips to do it, that's the kind of time you want to take a chance and see if you can get out ahead. If not, you're going to be right back kind of at 1,650, about where you started. I wouldn't make that call all the time, but in this case, it worked out for me. In this next section, we're going to talk about the X Factor system. And this is a system for adjusting your play based upon your stack size and the blinds and the stage of the game that you're in. So the X Factor system is something that I created as a simple sit-and-go system that beginners and intermediate players can use to sort of as guide rails almost, if you will, that will keep you in the right area, the way you're managing your money, the way that you're playing, and enable you, as you'll see, to make better decisions that will more reliably and consistently get you into the money and into that heads-up position so that you can go for it at the end of the game. It's based on your chip position and the blinds. Now, I didn't completely invent all of this, so what I want to do here is just say that it's been very common for people to look at their stack to pot ratio. And what we mean by that is your current stack size divided by the size of the pot at the beginning of each hand. So once the blinds and any antes, if any, are in the pot, we calculate our stack to pot ratio. And I call this the X factor. And we'll see in a minute why it's called the X factor. But when we have this X factor in mind and we calculate it, we can adjust our play according to some guidelines that I'll give you here in just a moment. So how do we calculate the X factor? Well, we start off by looking at our current stack size, and these are not exact amounts. We we estimate our current stack size, which you should always be keeping track of anyway. And then we look at how much money is going into the pot. Now, this is easy to do online because it is displayed for you. You know, if you're in a home game or a regular tournament, you need to be keeping track of that by watching what's in the middle in the pot at all times, but especially when you first start. So that we'll call that the initial pot amount, the amount of the antes and the blinds that are in the pot at the beginning of each hand. So, for example, if we are at the stage where we have blinds of 100, 200, and antes of 25, and there's 8 players at the table, so that's 8 times 25 for the antes, there's a total pot of 500 chips. So 100 plus 200 in the blinds, plus the antes. Now, if your stack size is 5,000, then your X factor is 10. It's your stack size is 5,000 divided by the 500 that's in the pot. Pretty simple. If your stack size is 3,000, your X factor would be 6, and so forth. So the key here is getting good at just doing this simple division. Sometimes it's easier to just take the size of the pot at the start of the hand and just multiply that out and see where you end up if you're not really good at division. So maybe that's easier for some people. The other thing you can do is just take your current stack size and then divide it by the size of the pot. Now, when you're playing online, this is actually even easier because you can use the calc program. Just go to Start menu, hit Run, and type in CALC, and it brings up the Windows calculator. And from there, you can just easily type in the size of your stack and the size of the pot and calculate your X factor. And I'll actually do that as a demonstration at some points as we're playing in the game. Again, these are estimates. They're approximations. It's a rule of thumb system. It's not an exact science. So you don't have to be exact. Just get you in the ballpark to get your X factor. Now, I've created this X Factor playbook, and what the X Factor playbook is a way of giving you guidelines based on what your X is currently as to how you should be thinking about playing. So we have a really big X, like greater than 30. I call this the chip monster, or you're in a position to bully everybody at this point. You can take more risks. You can bluff and steal a lot more. You can use your stack aggressively as long as you don't risk more than about 10x. Okay, so as an example, if I've got an X of 30, I'm not going to want to spend all 30 of that going up against another player who has a really big stack. That would be foolish. So when I want to engage with players who have 10x or less, okay, in case they take me all in. All right? So this is just some things to think about in terms of who you engage and how you play when you're in that chip monster position, because you don't want to lose your chip lead. That could be really devastating. But you can take more risks as long as you're, knowing that you're going up against players where you're not going to risk at all. Now, if you're in the what I call easy street range, your X is greater than 20 but less than 30, you're still in a pretty good position to take some calculated risks, bluff and steal, but use your stack selectively, aggressively. When you come in, you're not going to limp in a lot. You're not going to call a lot. You're going to come in and you're going to raise. You're going to push people around. Not quite as much as when you're the chip monster, but you're not going to be limping around a whole lot unless you're trying to trap somebody. In this case, we don't want to risk more than about 8 to 10 times. Again, we want to keep our X high, and we don't want to take too many big risks. Now, if your X is between 15 to 20, that's probably in the average stack size at this point. You're in reasonably okay shape at the current blind and ante level, but when those blinds and antes go up in a round or two, you may end up in a problem. Okay, so you need to hold out for some better hands here. Run some traps and bluffs where appropriate, but don't risk more than about 5x at this point. And you'll see why in a moment. When you get into the borderline stage of between 8 and 14 on your X, it's time to tighten up, take fewer risks, and protect your stack. You need to wait for better hands to engage. Don't get in a hurry. And make sure you've got the right kind of position against tight players, against the best kind of players when you're going to bluff and steal in this situation. Then finally, the most interesting area, and the toughest one actually to play, is when your X is at 7 or less. So when you're in that 5 to 7x range, you need to enter what we call push-fold mode. When you go into push-fold mode, what we're basically saying at this point is if I play a hand, and I've got like a king in the hand or an ace, and any ace or king in the hand, like a heads-up type hand or a pair, any pair, I'm all in. I am not going to play around and limp in or raise you. It's like I'm all in because I want to take every possible opportunity to double up, and I want to drive as many people out of the pot. If you don't go all in, you don't have enough chips in the stack, as you try to go incrementally to push anybody out. So this is where, the power in Texas Hold'em is the ability to go all in and to damage some players, okay? So if your X drops below about 5, if it's down to 4 or 5, gosh, that's like just a regular bet of 4 to 5 times a big bet of 4 to 5 times the pot. At that point, you're going to have a much harder time pushing people around, and it's not a place you want to be. So when your X gets in that 5 to 7 range, go into push fold. You're probably going to end up heads up against person anyway if somebody calls you. So you want to have a good, strong heads-up hand, and just think like you're in heads-up mode at this point. You're not playing against the whole table. You're playing heads-up, and if you get against 3 players, so much the better. You have the chance of tripling your stack. But we're not going to play many hands, and when we do get something, we're going all in, or we're not going to play at all at this stage. Now it's time to go back for some tournament action. We'll start talking more about this X factor from here on out at the tables. And so it's time for us to go see how we survive the shakeout in the middle game. Hello and welcome back. We're now in the middle game. As we'll see, the middle game lasts quite a bit longer than the other segments of the game. In fact, it'll go for about 30 minutes. And it actually went about 40 minutes. I've trimmed it back to only 30 minutes so that just to save us some time. But this middle game is really the most critical part of any sit-and-go game, and it's kind of the one where if you get it right, then you'll make it into the end game and into the money and have a shot at actually going heads up. On the other hand, there's a lot that can go wrong during this middle game, so it's an area that can be quite dangerous. And like I said, it's survivist of the fittest at this point, and as we'll see. So at this stage, I'm was fortunate in the last go round to pull at flush, and as you can see right now, I'm not getting any decent starting hands. 3-7, is really not worth much. So we're just going to kind of hang out and wait for a little better hand here. As we talked about in the last little segment, this X factor is something that I use very much in the all aspects of the game, but especially in the middle game. The X factor will be your friend in the middle game and in the end game, as we'll soon see. And so again, calculating X is not that hard, but what we need to be doing right now, since we're not in the hand, we need to be watching the other players, and we need to watch what style play do they have, how aggressive are they. See, this guy on our right here, Mr. Black Double A, he just folded to a raise, and that's a good indication he's a solid, maybe tight player. So we just kind of tuck that away and keep that in mind. You got a King 9 starting hand, so that's decent. I'm just going to call it and see what the flop looks like unless somebody raises me. So let's see what we got here. We did get a raise. I'm in the chip lead position. I could do just about anything. At this point, I decided to go ahead and fold it. No reason to engage needlessly. I mean, if he's got pocket aces or pocket kings, there's just no reason, with me being in the chip lead position, to take that kind of risk right now. King 9's not that strong of a starting hand. It was on the cuff there. I could have called it, could have potentially called it, but could have easily lost many hundreds of chips, or even gotten sucked in deeper with that poor starting hand with a bad kicker. So it's best not to call that stuff. The X factor. Just looking around the table right now, we've got blinds of 15-30, so that's 45 in the pot. So 10 times that is 450. 20 times that would be 900. So at this stage of the middle game, everybody is above an X factor of 20. So people can pretty much play fairly freely. Here we've got a very significant raise, which to me is communicating maybe trip threes,
possibly a really big. Oh, he's got double sevens against kings. Well, I think he kind of overplayed the sevens, don't you? You know, I could understand it if he had, you know, a set of threes, but you know, those sevens, I wouldn't have played that strongly, and obviously it's put him in a difficult position now. Ace-6, it's worth a see. It's worth a look-see. Got to be really careful with that ace low kicker, though. Let's see what we're going to get. Let's see what Mr. Stealth is going to do for us. Everybody folds. Not much help. You know, what the heck? At this point, you know, I don't have much to lose. He's got a pair of fives. You know, I might pull an ace or something. We'll see. No. So, you know, not much to lose. Chip leader position. The guy goes all in with 90 chips. Pair of twos. Well, gosh, some people really like playing these twos strong. I'm not one of them. I've been burned too many times. If I flop a set of twos, it's great, and I'd love to see that. But if I don't flop a set, I'm pretty much going to usually be out of there with those twos. Yeah, and somebody's sitting there with an ace in their hand, most likely. So, you know, any kind of a significant bet, and I'm out of there with the twos. It's just not worth the risk. You got a 1 in 8 chance, possibly, of pulling that set, and if you don't get it on the flop, it's generally best to just fold it and get away from it. Okay, here we go with a pair of fives, like that. A little better than the twos. I probably would normally try to raise this, not too heavily, but, you know, just enough that, you know, these guys will either fold, or in this case they fold, so great. We'll take the pot, and don't have to risk too much with those fives. So we've got a Jack King. Again, looking around, we've got an injured player here who has got 225. He's likely to pop in with all in, just like he's doing just now, at any point in time. Jack King, you know, it's probably worth a call once again. This guy's been playing some fairly weak hands because he's in a difficult position there with his X factor being way below 10. In this case, he's got a pretty decent ace-queen, but he didn't flop the jack like I did. In fact, I've got him covered. He's drawing dead at this point. With he did get his queen, but it wasn't enough. So took out another player and bought myself a few more rounds of blinds, which is good. Being in the chip monster position at this point, have very little to worry about, of course. And I'm not going to play that 3-4. Well, actually, I did call it. Let's see what happens here. So, very dangerous position I'm in right now, unless everybody continues to check. Nobody has anything, so I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to bluff here, you know, kind of a semi-bluff, since I've got a really weak low pair. Anybody re-raises me, I'm out of there, but as it turns out, I had more than they did, so just easily walked away with that pot. You'll be surprised that as many times as there's some action on the table, if you're the one that bets and leads that action, at least half the time you'll just take the pot right away. Especially if you're at a table with some solid or tight players. Don't feel like you've got just placing a bet automatically puts you out ahead. And don't recommend much a lot of calls. Oftentimes you just pull that pot down right then and there. So you're not going to win a lot in this game. Don't take the weak play and weak way out and just check it or call it. Now, I tend to take a little more risk than throw a feeler bet out there and find out if there's somebody actually. Sometimes it works out in my favor. Sometimes it doesn't. But it's all based on my X factor and how much I have in order to risk at that particular point in time. And, you know, if you keep an eye on your X factor and you're smart with how much of your X that you spend or you're willing to put into the pot at any point in time, you'll be surprised at how much it'll help you, because instead of gambling with your whole stack, which is what a lot of people do, you gamble with a portion of it, and you pretty much, you know, kind of draw the line right there and say, you know, if I've got right now 5,000 in chips, I'm not willing to gamble with more than about 1,000, maybe 2,000 in a really rare circumstance where I've got a pretty good hand. But there's no reason for me to be gambling when I'm in a chip leadership position like right now. I just need to wait, be patient, Don't risk too many chips. Ride it out. Let these guys knock each other out and get sick. Now you see Joe Black here is down to 930. These folks are going to sit there and pound away at each other throughout this middle game. And I'm in a really good position because of a number of bets and risks I took earlier in the game that panned out for me. So this is a great position to be in the middle game. Now what we're going to do is analyze some of the other players' play who are not in such a good, strong chip position. So you can see here, you've got one caller and just raised really 3 times, or bet. So I've got 3 times the pot in there. I didn't make anything on the flop, but look at this. I'm going to act like I did. So I bet on the flop, or pre-flop rather. Now I'm betting again on the flop, an even bigger bet, indicating that I really like that flop, even though I was bluffing. I had 2 overcards as sort of a semi-bluff, but it wasn't a very strong position, but they had no way of knowing that, and I just represented strength. And because my table image right now is the chip leader, and having knocked several people out, in fact, I think I've knocked three of them out so far, it's very strong. Now look at this. I've got ace-king. I'm not going to play it really strong. Well, 200's 4 times the blind. I guess that's reasonably strong. It's a big bet. And I've got a strong table image. Unless somebody's got a really strong hand, they're probably all just going to fold to me. So, that's fine. I would rather have that and just take the blinds down than have somebody suck out on me because I didn't bet it. Okay, I'm going to bet it a little bit differently. I don't like to bet the same hand the same way every time. I'll bet a little bit different amount, even if I've got the same kind of hand like ace-king, just because I don't want people getting a read on my hand strength based on my bets. So I'll vary that quite a bit. Okay, so let's see what's going to happen here. I'm in the big blind. Got a 2-7. So we got a community pot. Hey, I'm getting pretty good pot odds here now. I'm just going to go ahead and see what happens. I got nothing, so let's see what's going to happen here. All right. I'm just going to check. 4 players. Weakness, weakness. Look at this. I got a 2. I got the low pair on the board. All right, everybody's showing weak. I'm going to show strength and go, even though it's on a 2. Watch this. Let's see what these guys, I guess with my table image combined with showing strength, I mean, that was pretty amazing, but I took that pot down easily. You just have to bet sometimes in order to win, especially if you've got a table image of being relatively solid and tight and aggressive when you do come in with a hand. And so far, they've never seen me bluff. They've never caught me in a bluff. That's the other thing you want to keep track of. When you do bluff, if they catch you, then a lot of times they'll start coming back at you later when you bluff. And so what I like to do when in bluffing is the following. If I'm bluffing and getting away with it, I'll keep bluffing and getting away with it as long as they let me. Okay? When they start giving me a lot more action and start coming back at me, it probably means they're on to me and I've been bluffing too much. They're starting to get on to me. Now they're giving me some action. So now what I'll do is I'll reduce my bluffing and I'll try to get them to come back at me when I've got a real hand. When you start getting too much action again, then that's a good thing because you can come at them when you've got the really good hands and you can take advantage of getting that action. And then at some point when they start respecting me a little more again, I'll go back to bluffing. So you just kind of sense whether you're getting action, whether your bluffs are being respected or whether they're being called, and you just adjust your play to your advantage. So you don't always do the same thing, or they'll get a good read on you, and then you won't be able to accomplish anything. The way you make money in this game of poker is, like in a lot of games, it's through misdirection. Misdirection causes the opponent to make a mistake. When they make a mistake and you're right there, you capitalize on it, and you capitalize on their mistake by getting them to make the wrong move at the wrong time. So when you're getting good action, you want to take advantage of it, and if I'm starting to get a lot of good action, sometimes what I'll do is I'll go into trapping mode, and if I'm pressing bets and I'm getting action, that's great. But if I'm not getting action, rather, I'll go into a trapping mode and let them start pushing me, especially if there's somebody at the table that's getting aggressive. I'd love to let them push on me and just push me in deeper and deeper. And I'll just sit and call those bets as they sit there and push me deeper and deeper. And as my hand improves, or if I know I've got a top hand, I love trapping people. Now, it's not something that works every time, and you got to be careful with it, or you can end up trapping yourself in cases where their hands actually improve, and you wish that you weren't in there. So now this is an interesting one here. I've kind of gotten myself into this. I've got 2 pair, except that I actually ended up sucking out here with a flush. I've actually been fairly lucky in this game, and in fact, almost extraordinarily lucky at certain points in time. But the more hands you play, the more of that stuff you'll pull. So I'm in a good position right now as chip leader because I can take extra risks. It doesn't matter if I lose. I could lose 1,000 chips right now and it wouldn't make that big of a difference. And everybody knows that. So unless they've got a really strong, solid hand and they're ready to go all in and double up, they're probably not going to come back at me too heavily. So we're down to what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 players. So we're definitely in the middle, that middle game, where everybody's going to start struggling now at some stage against the blinds. The blinds are coming up, 5,100. So now if we think about that 5,100, we've got an X factor of, let's see, 10x would be 1,500. So we've got a couple of 3 players really right in that area. In fact, the fellow on the left is down below 10x. So we can look for him to, if he's a good player, to start going all in here at some point. He's getting pretty close to that marginal area there, his X factor, where he needs to actually start going all in order to double up. And now he's not quite at that point. He's probably going to hold off a little bit longer, but if he gets some good hands, he probably will start jumping in there a little bit heavier. So you can see I'm not getting that many strong starting hands. 6-8 suited, certainly not one of my favorite hands. So I'm going to just, again, kind of hang out. No reason to engage at this stage. And if I was one of these other fellows with 1,700, 1,300, 1,100, 2,000 chips, I probably still would be playing pretty much the same way. I wouldn't be engaging a lot right now in this middle game. I'd be playing fairly tight. I would be engaging when I have a good hand or when I feel like I'm in a position to make a bet and steal the blinds. The blinds are not up enough yet to where they're serious enough to where they're worth stealing, but they're getting there. We're at 225, the 150 plus 75. So X times 10 now is 2250. So you can see just a lollipop or whatever there on the left is in pretty big trouble. It's 630. So he's only at about, what, 3x, and he's going down hard, and there's probably nothing to stop him. And he hasn't been going all in. He's sitting there folding. The blinds are just eating him alive. And he's sort of missed his opportunity earlier, as I was saying, before the blinds went up. He should have been going all in and driving people out of the pot and building his stack back up. As it is, he's down so low that he's almost so low that if he does go all in, people are just going to call him. And don't want to end up in that position because it takes one of the biggest parts of your no-limit hold'em power away from you, which is the ability to go all in and sort of scare people out of the pot, or at least make them call you only when they have a respectable hand, and steal the blinds and kind of rebuild your position. So just a pipe over there is got a big problem right now. As you can see, I'm just sitting here. It's kind of boring, folding all these crap start hands like 10-4. I don't play that good buddy hand much. I don't like the Jackson 5 hand either, even if it's suited. Some of those hands, you're just better off in general, unless you're in a blind. There's just no reason to be playing those hands. Like 7-5 offsuit. I'm in a blind. I wouldn't normally play this hand, a starting hand, but in this case, assuming he doesn't just fold, which he does. It's fine with me. I wouldn't normally play that starting hand. Yeah, Jackson 4. I don't play that one much either. So you can see I'm just going to insta fold that one. No matter what happens on the field, I don't really care to be a part of it with that kind of starting hand. Playing kind of super tight at this point is the way that I like to hold on, and I don't like risking my chips when I don't have a good shot at winning, unless I have a really good shot at bluffing. And certain situations, conditions need to be right for me to want to play that game. Right now, no real reason for me to do that. In a good chip lead position, I'll take my shots when I get them, and I'll let these guys sit there and duke it out with each other and just bleed their chip stacks down until one or two of them emerge, which is what's going to end up happening. It's getting kind of boring, and that's the way this game goes if you're playing it carefully in the middle game here. 3-5 offsuit's not a great hand. As you can see, I didn't flop anything that's too exciting to go with it, so it's time to fold and just get on out of there. So at least he went all in. He's starting to do something right. The other thing you want to be doing is you want to be trying to guess what kind of hand these folks have based on the position they're in, what kind of player they are, and what's their X factor currently. And these guys both appear to have fairly weak hands. Now he's going to go all in, which is, I think, the right move, and yes, he pulls down that pot. So he's starting to build his stack back up because he's gone all in twice in a row. Isn't that what we said that the X factor system tells us we should be doing right now when we're in his situation? See, his X is 225, so he's at about 5X, which is not great. He's still in a kind of a push fold type of mode where if he does get into a hand, he needs to go ahead and go all in if he's going to play a hand at all. And that's when you get your X factor in that 5 to 7 range, you end up needing to go into push fold right then and there and stop pussyfooting around, calling, and that kind of thing, because all it's going to do is get you in trouble. And what I want to do is I'm bringing up the calculator here, and I think I eventually figure out that it works better if I put it on the right and kind of behind the field of play. But calculating my X, look at that. So I'm sitting there at an X factor of around 27, which is incredibly good. So at an X factor above 20, in that 20 to 30 range, I'm in a really good position to do just about anything I want, as long as I don't risk more than about 10X, which would be about 2,000 chips. Okay? So, like I said, I'll eventually figure out where I want that calculator. I think it ends up on the right. But okay, ace-queen offsuit. Yeah, one of the better starting hands I've had in a while, and certainly looking forward to getting some action with a decent hand for a change, which is fine. It takes a lot of patience in this game to really do well. But when you get a good hand like this, you play it, and you bet it. Now, I would expect some action. Here we go. Got the all-in call that I was expecting. That's fantastic. Got some action. And he pulls the king. That's fine. I made the right play with the ace-queen, and this time I didn't happen to pull anything out of the hat. But so you see what he did by going all in like 3 or 4 times in a row there. He's back up. He was down in really serious shape, down at about, gosh, what was it, 600 or less? And by going all in, he's built his stack back up where he's just about to a 10X. So he's getting in much better condition than he had been. So I'm recalculating my X. It's about 22.9. So as you can see, I'm still in that 20 plus X range, which means I can continue to experiment around, gamble a little bit, as long as I don't go overboard and dramatically impact my X. Ace-2, at this stage, probably just hang it up and sit on the sideline here a little bit longer. So, what's going to happen here? Looks like the queens have it. Friend here on the left was admirable job, really, of rebuilding his stack, but just to have it whacked, even though he's at 1,300. So a bit precarious position at this point. So he's still in push-fold mode, and eventually he's either going to make it and take one of these guys out and double up, or he's going to get knocked out. Got some good action going here. A couple of players. Good sized pot. Both checking. It's like, why would you both check and bet 300? And it's like, I just don't know. It's like I would not have played it that way. I would have come out a lot stronger. Probably all in the X position the guy on the bottom has been in. And as it turns out, that was the right play. See, but he bet it very weak, in my opinion, and he could have gotten himself into trouble. He should have gone all in. As it turns out, he did okay. Now, this Ace-5 suited is a hand I like. You've got a good nut flush draw, and you've got a low straight, which are both good hands. Of course, the Ace low kicker is a problem hand. This case, I'm going to go ahead and see the flop. So I've got the 5. I like that. My guess is if I come back with something aggressive, I may just run him out of that pot. Nope. So he came right back over the top. That says he's got something really strong at this point. Now we got 2,700 in the pot, so I'm getting good odds to go ahead and call it. But things are not looking too good at this point in terms of my hand. So what are we going to do? It's time to say, okay, buddy, I'm all in. I really love my hand that much. Are you ready to risk it all? So I'm bluffing right here. Let's see if bad bait takes the bait, or if he says, you know what, I'll live to fight another day, which is what he does. So that was sort of a semi-bluff in that I could have pulled an ace or a 5. Odds were not great, but I didn't feel that he had a strong enough hand to call that all-in bet. And being this chip leader, that's one of those times you're able to pull that out. Even if I had lost it, I would have been down to about 3,000 chips. So it was something I could afford to do that he couldn't afford to do. That's the way you use your stack and chip leader position when you've got a semi-bluff situation where you can improve your hand, but you can run somebody out of a pot by throwing your weight around. Okay, so we've got the long roller up here on the top, who is, you can see he's in trouble, and he just folded, which is probably a mistake. But his X factor is really bad. My X, on the other hand, is really good right now, and with an Ace-10, I'm going to be in that pot, and whoopee, here we go. So I've got him in there with me. I've got a really great heads-up hand against, I've got him pretty much dominated at this point. I love that ace. King 10, that's a hand that I like. I probably tend to overplay King 10 a little bit, but I like it when it's suited, especially. I like it because I've got good chance for a straight draw and a flush draw that's fairly high. This 7-Jack is probably a hand to fold and just kind of get out of the way with, even though it's suited. Again, time to go back and just update my X factor. Nothing much has changed a lot, but I'm up to about 25. As you may notice, we've slipped into the money here. We made it all the way past the middle game, down into the end game. We're into the money. We've got 3 players. I've got about 2x the biggest stack there, and we've got the player on the left, Bad Bait, still with us. And so what we're going to do now is I go into kind of a mode here where we're in this end game, and what I want to do is just let these guys duke it out with each other. I'm the chip leader. There's no reason for me to be risking my stack with a hand like an 8-3 here. Okay, so I'll see a flop since I'm in the blind anyway. A big bet comes at me, and I'm probably just out of there. It's like no reason to be taking unnecessary risks, because in this game, anytime you enter a showdown, there's two of 3 things that can happen, and 2 of them are bad. A passing play in American football. When you pass the ball in football, it can get intercepted, It can be an incomplete pass, both of which are bad, or you can make a completion and or a touchdown, which is the one good thing that can come out of it. Well, in poker, it's kind of like a passing play. There are more things that can go wrong than good, and with a given hand. So, I didn't hit anything on the flop. At this point, 7-8. I've got an inside straight draw. Not a good chance. It's a 1 in 11 chance. The pot's only giving me at this point, like a 1 in 2 odds back. So it wasn't a statistically good play to make right there. So I'm just going to go ahead and fold this small blind. One of the reasons I like to fold the small blind is it's number one, it's the small blind. You're not losing that much, and it's conservative play that makes it look like you're playing extra honest to these guys, which helps you, I think. Because then when you do bet, they have a respect that you're coming into the pot, and they don't know if you're bluffing or if you're really betting with a hand. If I have a weak hand in the small blind, I'll typically just fold it. And if I'm on the dealer button and I don't have a strong hand at this point, again, I'll also fold there. I play fairly conservatively at this stage because my goal is to get heads up, and I'll just let these guys duke it out here, especially being in a chip leadership position. If I wasn't in a chip leader position, I would be playing pretty much the same way, fairly conservatively, and I would only engage when I thought I had a good chance of winning. But I would keep an eye on my X factor, and if it dropped too low, I'd start going into push-fold mode and start pushing them around. So now, bad bait should be in that mode. If you see, he's got the blinds are at 300. Basically, at this point, anything you do is a heads-up type of play for the most part, because you're only going to get one other player to engage you, if anybody. The blinds are 300. The bad bait is at 1,500. So, he's at about 5x, which is part of the game that he should be in push fold. If he's going to do anything, he should be going all in here when he has any kind of a heads up hand whatsoever. Okay, so we got a raise. I'm out of there with that weak starting hand. Bad bait should be going all in, and he does. Raises all in, just the right play. Probably will get called. Okay. And unfortunately, he's not in a good position here. I think we're about to end up in a heads-up mode. Yep. So goodbye, Mr. Bad Bait. All right. So now the time we waited for and we were so patient for has finally arrived, and that's a heads-up game. So now things change. So I'm going to play quite a bit more aggressively here in this situation than I did before. However, I won't go crazy, at this point. You can see our stacks are, roughly even. I've got a little bit more, about 1,000 chips more. But so I translate that conservative play to honest play. And so now I'm going to raise him, even though, you see, I don't have a hand worth being in with 8-3. Now he goes ahead and calls me. I happen to flop a 3, which is not a particularly great hand. But at this stage, I do at least have a pair, which is pretty good, when you're playing heads up. As it turns out, at 6, 7, 8, 9, I've got an open-ended draw here. I've got the 2 pair here on the river. At this stage, it's working out okay for me. Let's see what he does. I'm just going to go ahead and kind of call him out here all the way down, and worked out fine. So 8 king, pretty decent hand, heads up. Go ahead and call. Now I didn't catch anything. I'm going to go ahead and check. It shows weakness. Now he's also showing weakness. So it's time to go ahead and come back at him like that jack, helped me, I guess. In any event, as you can see, I'm bluffing. I'm playing more aggressively than I had been playing, and it's working to my advantage here in the heads-up mode. Queen Jack, a heads-up, is a decent hand, not fantastic. So as you can see, that's a hand I probably shouldn't have called. I generally don't like calling all-in bets, but in this case I have a big enough lead that I can afford to take a few risks. But I probably made a mistake by making that call, and as it turned out, you can see that I definitely did. But again, I play very aggressively, comparatively speaking, when I'm playing heads up, and you'll find that if you don't play aggressive enough heads up, you will oftentimes lose. Okay, so he's coming back at me as kind of an honest player, which means that he probably has a strong hand when he raises like that, because I haven't seen any indication of anything other than that. So I've got a reasonably good read on this fellow, and he's got a good read on me. We're both in a pretty even keel here in terms of knowing what we're doing. And this stage, I'm just kind of like checking it down. This case, it looks like a pretty decent position to be in. I'm going to go ahead and see if my ace will hold up, and looks like it did. 6-8, not worth messing with. Just better to fold that small blind and send the message that I'm playing honestly to the other player, which will cause him to respect my play, a little bit more generally than he would otherwise. Again, not going to take undue risks. I'm in a lead position. Not going to give him a good shot at my stack. No reason to take those undue risks at this point. It's really easy to lose your stack quickly playing heads up if you play it wrong. Now, decent starting hand. I'll raise it up. Use my tight, honest image to pull that pawn down. Again, we're both playing fairly honestly, or we think we are. He thinks I'm playing honestly because I fold my small blind a lot, but that doesn't really mean I'm playing honestly. You'll notice I protect my big blind. So I keep getting this 8-3. I guess I'm starting to like that hand, or at least I'm needing to, the way this is going. Okay, he's going all in. I generally don't like to call an all-in bet heads up. Even if I had a stronger starting hand, I probably wouldn't call the all-in because he's got something really good as an honest player going all-in against me. Now, in this case, I'm going to underplay the jacks. I probably could have raised those, but I'm going to purposefully underplay them, trying to mislead him and see if he'll come back over the top of me here. And he didn't. That's all right. So now, I've got an overcard. I'm going to put out a feeler bet. He doesn't have the king, but he doesn't know that I don't. So, good move. Ace-6. I like that. Decent starting hand. See a flop. Okay, flop didn't help me, but I'm going to act like it did. See that? This tight table image that I keep portraying by folding my small blind in the heads up mode is working to my advantage here, and I'm able to use that against this player who is apparently believing that I'm playing fairly honest with him. 6-9 suited, not a great starting hand heads up. Willing to see a flop with it, but I'd rather fold it and at this stage and not take too many risks since I'm in a chip lead position. Queen 7, not gonna play that heads up. Again, this is kind of monotonous, going back and forth, but what we're waiting for here is the right opportunity to get him to make a big move on me when I've got a really strong hand, which is how I would anticipate that I'll take him out. So here we go, King 10. I'm just saying, okay, I like my hand a little bit. Let's see what he's got. Okay, he's raising me back, so this could be it. Now look at this. Sure enough, I flop a King 10, 2 pair. Now if he goes all in, believe me, he'll get called. And it's my hope that he will go all in. And sure enough, well, no, he didn't. Okay, well, at this point, I'm not going to show my strength. I'm just going to call him, act like I'm still on a draw. And here he goes, all in. So see, I baited him. He went all in on me. It's great. He did have his king, but he's way out of the running at this point. So that's it. That's how I maneuvered my way through the middle game into the money and then all the way up to first place to win this tournament. It helped that I had a good, strong start. Having a strong start puts you in a good position, but at some point you're going to have to make your move, take a few risks in order to win. So thank